God's Word Express.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're opening up a really remarkable set of sources. These are teachings from Pastor Dr. Kamekawana Karatiti, and we're looking at part 8 of his series on unleashing miracles.
In this teaching, it really challenges us to look past just the wonder of the miracles themselves and focus instead on the fine print. We're kind of reading between the lines to find the specific and often very costly conditions that the recipients had to meet.
So we're looking at the difference between just, religious routine and that true sacrificial kind of obedience.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's our mission today. We're going to synthesize this material, focusing on a few key New Testament stories, and really try to extract the mindset required to see a miracle unleashed. It's a deep dive that goes beyond treating God as just another option.
And embraces him as the only necessary way forward.
Let's get right into it then. We'll start with that iconic story of the woman with the issue of blood. 12 long years she suffered.
Right. And the core takeaway that the sources pull from her suffering is pretty singular. She only got her healing when she finally reached a point of declaring Jesus is the only way.
The only way. That seems pretty standard, but the source material really digs into this by introducing a specific Greek concept, monos. How does that change things?
Well, monos means single, solitary, exclusive. It leaves absolutely no room for, backup plans or alternative strategies. And the teaching offers a really pointed critique of, say, the modern successful believer, the person with the PhD, the skilled professional. They often treat God as, supplementary.
Like, God is great, but I also need to make sure I've covered my own bases.
Precisely. It becomes God plus my brilliant business strategy, or God plus my marketing campaign. They only really seek him after they've spent years exhausting everything else.
Just like her 12 years of suffering and failed doctors.
Exactly. The problem becomes habitual, almost permanent. The source uses this great analogy. If you already know the one single road to Chiang Mai, why would you spend 12 years trying every other road that doesn't even exist?
So relying on God plus strategy just isn't monos.
It's not. And her healing, it wasn't just a quiet thought. The sources stressed she had to speak her belief that he was the monos. It was a definitive external declaration.
An acknowledgement that her own efforts had failed completely.
Which is what gave her the boldness for what she did next. She didn't just grab at his clothes randomly, which is an easy mistake to make when you read the story.
Right, she touched the border of his garment or the hem. It's a detail that's so easy to gloss over, but the sources unpack the massive cultural and theological weight of that tassel that sits it.
And if we miss the context of the tzitzit, we honestly miss the whole point of the miracle's cost. This castle, it was commanded back in the Book of Numbers. It had 613 threads, symbolizing the 613 laws.
And the purpose was for them to look at it and remember the laws and then obey them.
Yes, to obey them. And the text is very specific. It was to stop them from following their own heart or their own eyes, which it immediately connects to immorality.
So it was an external reminder to not follow your own internal selfish desires.
So when this woman, who's been unclean and an outcast for 12 years, reaches for that tassel, she's doing so much more than just asking for a cure.
She's making a statement.
A huge one, a public physical declaration of discipleship. She was essentially saying, I choose to live under your authority, obey your commands, and I'm giving up my old self-directed life.
And the cost of that submission, even the physical symbol of it was immense. The sources share this incredible detail about the blue dye they used in those tassels, the techelet.
Oh, this is fascinating. It wasn't some cheap dye.
Right.
Research shows this rare, specialized color was produced by grinding, boiling, and then dyeing thread with the dried excrement.
The ink sac, basically.
The ink sac of the murex snail, found near Israel. You can just imagine the process, the value. It made purple cloths, dyed in a similar way, wildly expensive.
So that just underscores the seriousness of the commitment. And the application today is, it's pretty challenging. People want the miracle, but they refuse to really submit.
Right. They still hold grudges or gossip or cut corners in their business. All these things the source calls compromise. And then they wonder why that power isn't active in their lives.
They want the power of the miracle without the costly obedience that tzitzit represents.
The commitment is the prerequisite. It's a total lifestyle pivot.
So if her healing required absolute submission, the next story, which happens right after, shows the price of total public humility. Let's talk about Jairus.
We really have to understand who this man was. His title, Archisynagogues, ruler of the synagogue. That wasn't just a caretaker.
No.
He was usually the wealthiest man in town, the main benefactor. He decided who read the Torah. He ensured doctrinal correctness. He was the local magnate. Think of him as the city godfather of Capernaum.
So he was the picture of dignity and power. And when he comes to Jesus, Jesus is on this rocky shoreline, surrounded by a huge, crushing crowd. The sources call it an oklos poes, like a mob.
And the crowd parts for him, of course. They respect his status. He's the most important man there.
But what he does next is anything but dignified.
Not at all. The sources point to the Greek word pipto. He fell down at Jesus' feet. And the teaching translates this as falling like a dead man.
Wow.
This powerful, rich leader throws himself face first into the sand and the seawater. He gets his fine clothes all wet, grabs Jesus' legs, and just cries out, "Help! My little daughter is dying."
He abandoned all of it. The pride, the status. He knew his wealth meant nothing in that moment. The Torah says he knew he was just an empty pizza box without the pizza.
That's the point right there. And it's a huge challenge for anyone whose pride is tied up in their achievements. The teaching really asks you, do you pray casually, politely? Or do you come wailing and wrestling like Jairus? Are you willing to look desperate?
And that's when the crisis gets even worse. While they're on their way, the news comes. Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore? The situation is now, from a human perspective, irreversible.
But Jesus' immediate response just cuts right through that fear. He says, do not fear, only believe. And that's the lesson. When things are medically unrecoverable, logically impossible, belief is the only path left.
So they get to the house, and now they face another obstacle. The hired mourners.
Yeah, these were professional wailers, already putting on this loud, dramatic display of grief.
So when Jesus says the girl is just sleeping, what did they do?
They do what unbelief always does. They laughed him to scorn, they mocked him, and Jesus' reaction is violent. He expelled them.
Expelled, that's a strong word.
It is. The Greek word is exballo. It's the exact same word used for casting out demons. He violently drove them out and only allowed the parents and his core team, Peter, James, and John, to stay.
So why? Why drive them out so forcefully? What's the lesson there?
The source material argues that God's Spirit is gentle. It won't work in a place filled with ridicule and mockery. So the lesson for you is that if you surround yourself with unbelieving, critical people in your business, your family, you might actually be preventing your own miracle.
You have to exballo that noise of unbelief.
You have to clear the room.
That's powerful. Okay, let's pivot to the final account. The healing at the Pool of Bethesda in John chapter 5. The location itself is just so fascinating.
It's highly symbolic. It was outside the city gate, this beautiful pool with 5 porticos. It was built for the wealthy, but by this point it had become foul, kind of dried up, and it was just occupied by the sick and the lame.
And the cultural context here really reinforces that Manos theme we started with.
It does. The belief that an angel stirred the water, which is mentioned in some texts, was probably a misunderstanding. Historians think this pool was likely a pagan healing center dedicated to the Greco-Roman god of medicine, Asclepius.
Whose symbol is the snake on the staff.
That's the one. So Jesus is walking into a place where people are looking to a pagan tradition for healing, not to God. It's a direct confrontation.
And he finds this man who has been sick for 38 years. And he asks him this really strange question. Do you want to get well?
I mean, why would you ask a man who's been sick for 4 decades if he wants to be healthy? It seems absurd.
Right.
But it's because after 38 years, the sickness wasn't just a medical condition anymore. It had become his entire identity, his social structure. And getting well meant he had to change everything.
He'd lose his whole ecosystem.
He'd have to go from being a receiver of pity and charity to being a giver, a productive member of society. He'd have to leave his familiar community of other sick people. He'd have to, work.
And that's the challenge. We say we want a miracle, maybe financial healing or a relationship restored, but we refuse to leave that old, familiar community of sin. We want the blessing, but we won't let go of the identity built around the problem.
And this idea is actually built into the Greek word for healing used here, therapeuo. It implies a healing that requires partnership, cooperation. It's where we get our word therapy.
So it's not passive.
Not at all.
Yeah.
You have to cooperate by choosing the new life. Are you ready to let go of the identity you've held for 38 years and actively therapeuo?
Which brings us to that final point of contrast, the spirit of religion versus the spirit of grace. So the man is healed. He picks up his mat and walks. What's the immediate reaction from the religious leaders?
They attack him. Not for the incredible miracle of being healed after 38 years, but for breaking the Sabbath law by carrying his mat.
They focused on a tiny rule and completely missed the magnitude of the miracle right in front of them.
Exactly. It's about the attitude. The source gives this really powerful modern example of a church that starts running subtitles for the hearing impaired, a pure act of grace, right?
Right.
And a religious person writes a letter, not to celebrate, but to complain about a typo in the subtitles. They're so obsessed with the tiny rule that they miss the grace entirely.
That's the critical spirit that elevates rules above relationship. It's what Jesus was talking about when he called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs.
Precisely. Beautiful on the outside, but inside, as he said, full of dead men's bones. The teaching is a strong warning against having that critical judgmental spirit that focuses on tiny flaws instead of the magnificent power of God's grace.
So after diving into all these details, what's the ultimate takeaway for us?
Well, the ultimate definition of a miracle, and this comes from a very simple teaching, is this. A miracle is the thing that we cannot do, but Jesus can. And the only condition is for us to put down our own strategies, our credentials, our status, and truly depend on him as manas.
So that brings us to the end of a really intense deep dive. We've unlocked 3 fundamental and costly conditions for miracles. First, choosing God as monos the only way.
Second, total submission and obedience. That commitment symbolized by the tzitzit, a surrender of your own way.
And third, being ready to change your whole identity and community, to leave the comfortable, even if it's destructive, pool of Bethesda.
So we'll leave you with this final challenging thought from these teachings. Are you willing to lose your dignity, like Jairus, to publicly throw aside your reputation out of sheer desperation? Or are you maybe too comfortable in your old self, in your old community? Are you ready to face the real cost of getting well?
Finally, we both hope that this message has blessed your spirit in one way or another. That's all from us for today. God bless you.